Good morning. Let's try it again. Good morning. Good. Okay. Thanks for being here today. So I am Gargi Bhaduri. I'm an associate professor and associate director of the School of Fashion. And today we have here Aimon Ali. Did I say that right? Um, so I will introduce her and give a short background, and then you will get to hear her awesome lecture. So with the dynamic background spanning fashion entrepreneurship, runway show production, content creator, and creative direction, Aimon has transitioned her expertise from Toronto, Canada, to establish her base in Cleveland, Ohio, which we are very thankful for. With over a decade of experience in the Canadian fashion scene, she has orchestrated successful events in major cities including Toronto, Montreal, Ottawa, and Vancouver. Driven by her passion for inclusivity and diversity, Aimon is committed to cultivating a community that embraces and celebrates the varied perspectives of creatives from all walks of life. Through her creative agency, Fashion Talks, she endeavors to unite the fashion communities of Cleveland and New York, fostering connections that empower and elevate the industry. Alongside her nonprofit venture, the Fashion Talks Foundation, she seeks to create meaningful impact, bridging gaps, and enriching the fashion landscape with her collaborative initiatives on a national scale. So let's welcome Aimon Ali.
Okay, perfect. Good morning, everyone. Thank you so much for being here. I'm super excited to be talking to you all and being part of the Art Without Limits event today. I'm going to be talking to you about my journey from Toronto to Cleveland and why inclusivity is so important in our industry, in the fashion industry. Thank you, Gargi, for the wonderful, I don't know where you are. Oh, there you go. Thank you for the wonderful introduction. You said a lot of my bio, thank you. So my name is Aimon Ali. I am the founder of Fashion Talks and the FT Foundation, which I will get into, and we'll get started. Am I clicking the right thing? Perfect. So, like it was mentioned, I grew up in Toronto. I was not born there. I was actually born in Pakistan, but I moved to Toronto when I was about 3, and I lived my whole life there. Growing up in Toronto, my major was actually psychology. I really loved psychology. I didn't really think much of fashion back when I was studying in school. I just kind of fell into it on the side. So my goal was to become a behavioral therapist. On the side, I started volunteering when I was in university at fashion clubs, and back then the Toronto industry was quite big, but it was not as big as it is right now. So Facebook was like kind of new and Instagram was kind of new. So me and my friends would like message big designers and be like, hey, like, do you need a volunteer backstage? We'd love to come help you. And the amount of people that said yes, you can't even believe it. Like, they would be like, yeah, like, can you bring like another friend with you? Can you bring 2 people with you? And I'd be like, absolutely, we'll be there. And I just started networking in the industry, and that kind of snowballed into me being on model teams, designer outreach teams, sponsorship teams, and it snowballed even further to me being one of the youngest producers of fashion shows and working backstage, all while I was still studying psychology, because I really loved psych, but I also realized I loved fashion. And I started an Instagram account back then just because I didn't want people to have my phone number, and this was kind of new still. Like, a lot of people are like, okay, so you're studying fashion. I was like, no, I'm a psychology major, but I just really love this, and I kind of somehow networked my way up into the industry. And with that, I ended up helping produce large-scale events all around fashion, technology, and business. So I did this in Toronto, in Montreal, in Vancouver, and in Ottawa. And with that, I also started styling and exploring the industry. I really tried to get a little bit of experience in every aspect. So I was really grateful to be able to work with magazines. I've been published in Vogue, I've been published in magazines around the world as an editorial stylist, but I've also been able to do a lot of events that focused on like DEI and really helping small entrepreneurs and business owners. And this was not a long time ago. I'm not that old, but it was quite a while ago. And I've been in the industry now for over 10 years. And this is because I really networked my way while I was in school. And being a student really helps you. And I really use that to my advantage. I ended up starting a PR company with one of my co-founders. And that was the same year that I also started working as a behavioral therapist. And also the same year I decided I was going to move to Cleveland. So my Cleveland move was kind of sudden. It's because I ended up getting married and I did the move. And so I kind of just was like, you know what, I'm going to do the move. I totally know Toronto well enough. It's a 4-hour drive. Didn't do my research, picked up my whole life, moved to Cleveland, and I got here and I was kind of like, oh, I'm here. Like, what do we do in Cleveland? And so coming to Cleveland, the first thing I did is I remember Googling like Cleveland Fashion Week because, you know, I knew Toronto Fashion Week, I knew New York Fashion Week, and I looked it up and not a lot came up and not what I expected came up. And then I looked up and I noticed that there were hospitals everywhere. So I was like, okay, I guess I'm gonna work in what I studied. So I got a job as a behavioral therapist and I absolutely hated it. As sometimes, you know, you love something so much and then when you finally get there, you realize, oh, this is not a good fit. I loved it in Canada. I didn't love it so much here. And so I started networking with people. I started my first business back then. It was like a small jewelry company. I started networking with the creatives in Cleveland and I realized people here were so talented that I was taking them back to work with me in Toronto, in Vancouver. Like I met makeup artists and models and designers and I was like, wait, why aren't you doing better? Like, why don't you have a proper brand? Why aren't you like going to New York? Why don't you do more? And everybody was like, well, we don't know how, or there's no one that, like, there's parts of the industry in Cleveland, but there's not like a foundation. They didn't have the same resources. Like Toronto, there was a lot of like grants and resources and organizations and schools. And I found out about Kent State a little later, but again, you know, you guys are students and you're going through school. So a lot of people who are older, who are in the industry, they per se can't really come back to school and do the whole thing over again. So I kept meeting these people and I was like, you know what, someone should do something. This would be really cool, like in Cleveland, but like, by the way, you should come and work with me in Canada because I've already got it set there. And that's when the pandemic happened. And the pandemic happened right when I quit my job and I was thinking of starting my business. And obviously that didn't work out. So I pivoted. I also have a bookkeeping and accounting business. I don't talk about it too much, but I do talk a lot about money with women entrepreneurs. But I basically sat COVID out, really started networking with more people, and decided after COVID that I was going to start Fashion Talks. So Fashion Talks is a fashion agency, and we provide services like runway shows, we do marketing, we do websites, we're basically an all-in-one service agency. And so this was right after COVID in 2020, and I looked at my husband, I was like, by the way, I'm gonna do a fashion show in Cleveland, we're gonna have designers who are actually designing, it's gonna be like New York, I'm gonna do a model casting, and I'm gonna have 300 people seated. And he looked at me, and you know what he said? He said, you're crazy, why would anyone understand that in Cleveland? And I looked at him and I'm like, exactly. So either it's gonna work and it's gonna go great, or it's gonna fail and I'm gonna go back to my behavioral therapy job and I'm gonna hate it. And so in 3.5 months, I put together a show. We did our first runway. We had designers come in and design and create collections, and we had model castings, and we put a show together. And it really brought out the community. And I realized, like, I kept saying, someone needs to do it. But eventually I was the person who kind of did do it, right? I saw that need and I filled it. And it was a whole experience, I'll tell you that. So the runway is something that we now do annually. It happens usually every June or July. And these are some photos from our runway. So our runway is not just your traditional fashion show. So we have a ballet performance, we have vendor areas with different businesses that are local, including students and refugees. We also showcase designers that are student designers, local, international, national, and refugee designers, because we really want to show people that there's diversity and there's talent in Cleveland. And not everyone is from Cleveland, but a majority of our designers and like 99.9% of our models are from Cleveland. We've even showcased Kent State students before. If you follow us, I'm sure you've seen them. But this journey was definitely not as easy as I'm making it sound. As someone who looks the way I do, and you really have certain, things come to mind before I open my mouth, and you're like, oh my God, her English is perfect. Where is she from, right? There are a lot of difficulties when it comes to being a woman of color in this industry, especially in Cleveland, where we didn't have that foundation. And I really had to go and tell people, like, hey, you're going to be a sponsor and this is what it means, and we'd love for you to be part of this fashion show, and this is what it is. And after the show, people are going to be able to shop and network. It's not just like they're going to see a show and they're getting up and leaving. If you've been to New York Fashion Week or seen, usually the shows are just, you're there, it's marketing, and then they leave. But our show is much more than that. It's bringing the community together. We do a lot of other events, but this is our largest event that we do. Our last one was actually I do have it up. It was at Hotel Cleveland, which used to be the Renaissance. We just did it in June. And now we're preparing for our 2025 runway, which is going to be hopefully next June. It's going to be our 5th year, actually. So through the runway, we've also been able to do a section called the Ladies of Influence, where we pick amazing women, usually 4 women, who are from any industry, and we do their hair and makeup, we style them, and they walk the runway as themselves to show people that there's more out there than just women in fashion, right? Because there's other women who are doing amazing things, and fashion might be part of it. And then we've also released our own magazine that comes out once a year for the runway. We have full production in-house. We have writers from Cleveland and actually some students from Kent State interning with us this year, so that's really exciting. But the whole thing itself is like a community in one event, and it's something that has really built up here and has helped us grow with other businesses who want to get connected to New York and other spots. So, I feel like as an entrepreneur, being able to adapt and overcome things is really important, because coming to Cleveland, I had no idea what I was stepping into, and coming into the fashion industry here that was kind of non-existent was another whole journey. And it's still a journey, because as of last year, we've started our nonprofit, which is the Fashion Talks Foundation, and we're hoping to do more give back and make more impact, especially for diverse creatives in the industry, and connecting them at a larger scale and not just within Cleveland. Because to grow, you really need to grow at a larger scale. And unfortunately, a lot of people just don't have those resources, and we would love to help them have those resources. But overall, it's been really amazing. This is the Cleveland Creatives. I was highlighted as a Cleveland Creative by the Cleveland Tourism Board as someone who is making change in the city, and it's been amazing seeing how Cleveland has taken fashion and grown. 5 years ago, when I started Fashion Talks, we were the only fashion show happening in the city. This year, we had, I want to say, 6 other shows happening all around at the same time, which is really amazing to see that people are inspired to do their own thing, because if the industry grows, then we all grow together. You all might know, I've heard we're a little popular on campus with our interns. So we do have an internship program, and our interns work on all things fashion related behind the scenes, whether it's outreach, social media, marketing, actual event production with our runway. We give them an opportunity to learn, because I did realize that we are the only hands-on fashion production company in Cleveland, unless you guys, I know you all go to like New York and Florence and all of that, but close to school, I might be one of the only main ones. And the fun things are that we also get to go to New York Fashion Week, because I am a content creator on the side. I do fashion, travel, and entrepreneurship. And because of that, I've been invited to New York Fashion Week. I go to a lot of events, and I've been able to take my interns with me every season. So I go in September and February. I think it's been a great opportunity for them to get in the industry, to have the opportunity to attend shows and really, really see behind the scenes. And this year we were able to do our first event through our foundation called The Forum. It's a talk series, like a mini panel and networking event. We did our first one in New York, and the girls got to come with me and be part of it and really experience all the hurdles that go on behind when the event venue doesn't respond to you for 6 months and then responds to you a week before your event, and all of the wonderful issues. But we made it work, and it was a wonderful time. And then this is us from the runway, and then the side photos are us from Fashion Week. And then there's a lot of opportunities that come my way as someone who looks different. And I think that being in spaces and talking to students and professionals and entrepreneurs really opens up just more opportunities. Like me talking to you, you networking with people in this room, networking with me might bring you an opportunity that you never thought of. So I actually got an email a few months ago in the beginning of the year, and I thought it was a scam. I thought it was like, those emails where they're like, we're gonna get you on Forbes, pay us like $150. And I was like, no. I kind of put it into spam, I ignored it. And then 2 weeks later I got a call, and it was someone I knew that I had worked with, and she's like, did you get this email? And I'm like, I did. And she's like, okay, that's real. Could you reply? And I was like, yes, I can. What is it? And it turns out I was nominated as one of the 25 most inspirational women leaders and was going to be on a billboard in New York. And I would have never seen it if I really wouldn't have seen it if she hadn't called me. But she thought of me to nominate me because of my work and because of me showing up in spaces. And I think that's so important, to really get out there and connect with people, and you never know where it's going to take you. And now that we have our foundation, we plan to do a lot more in New York, and we're really excited to be here in Kent with the interns that are always amazing, and also working with other schools in Cleveland. Overall, the fashion industry in Cleveland still needs a lot of work, and it is something that has a lot of opportunity, especially as students. I think you guys have an amazing kind of, you have a little thing that you can be like, hey, I'm a student, can I help you with this? Or I'm a student, can I interview you with this? Or I'm a student, can I intern with this? And you'll get a lot further than, unfortunately, an entrepreneur like me. If I emailed someone and said, hey, can you give me your free time? They'd probably say no. But if you said, hey, I'm a student, can I do this? Or do you need help with this? Most likely, a lot of people are gonna say yes. The amount of emails I get, even though sometimes I don't have a chance to respond to them, a lot of opportunities have come my way or come other people's way just because they sent that message. Or they came up to me once and they were like, hey, do you know anyone that's looking for an intern in New York? And a month later, I remembered, and I was like, I found their Instagram, and I was like, hey, this designer is looking, right? So it's all about networking, being open to different experiences, because once you actually get in the industry, as you all know, there's so much out there. That was one of the main struggles in Cleveland for me is, obviously people didn't come from a fashion background. So when I said, I'm doing a fashion runway show, they said, okay, where are you gonna get the clothes? And I said, no. Doesn't work that way. We have designers, and they design, and it's a whole process. And I think now people are more used to it. But if I told you guys I'm doing a runway show, you would get it right away. If I said I'm doing fittings, you would get it right away, right? So you have that knowledge, and I think you should really use that knowledge while you're in school. But overall, it's been an amazing journey, and we continue to grow with the foundation. And let's see. And I think the next slide is our info if you would like to connect with me or Fashion Talks. We have our email, our Instagram, and LinkedIn. I would love to connect with you all. I am going to be running to go speak at in another class right now, but I will be back for around lunch and the reception. If you plan to stay, please connect with us on Instagram, via LinkedIn, or email. I will tell you absolutely, if you email me, it's not a you problem, it's a me problem. It's going to take a lot longer than if you send me a message on LinkedIn or on Instagram, just because of how busy we are. But this has been an exciting journey to get to this point and be able to speak at spots like this. And again, I want to thank you all that did take the time to come today. And I think we might, I don't know how much time I have left, but we might do some Q&A.
We have plenty. We have time.
Okay.
We can take questions.
Anyone have any questions? Oh, yes, okay, and then we'll go to the person back there after.
I want to be in your show.
You want to be in my show?
Yes.
Okay, what part of the show?
The fashion part.
Okay.
When I walk down the runway, and I design.
Okay, cool. So I'll tell you guys a bit more about how to get involved in the show. So the runway happens, like I said, in June or July. There's not a confirmed date just yet. We are working on it. However, if you follow us on Instagram, as soon as the applications are live, I post it everywhere. So you can apply to be a model. Our model casting is open call. Whether you have experience or not, you can absolutely come out and try it. We want diversity. We want diverse bodies. We have no restrictions because it's more about your energy. You can learn to walk. Anyone can learn to walk. It's more about your confidence and your energy. So you can apply to be a model, come to our casting. We have usually 2 in-person castings and then a virtual casting if you can't make the in-person. If you're a designer, as a student designer, we have like a special section for you guys, but you can apply through the designer application, and then you'll get on an interview call with me and we'll go over your designs to see if you're a good fit. And then if you just want to volunteer, there's going to be a volunteer application. I already do have my intern selected for this coming year, but you never know. Life happens. People can't do stuff, so it doesn't hurt to reach out and be like, I'm interested, or sign up for our newsletter. You had another question?
Are there age requirements?
Yes. I would prefer you to be like 18 plus, but let's say we really like you, or if we really want to work with you, we'll just have you get like a parent guardian signature and we'll make it work. There's someone in the back.
Hello, I'm Nevaeh.
Hi.
So I was just curious because it sounds like what you're doing is so impactful and so amazing, and I'm so grateful to have you here at Kent State. So I'm just curious if you are doing any summer programs through internships, because I would 100% be interested in how would you go about that?
Yeah, so my internship is a little different than a normal internship, and I'll break it down for you, for anyone that might want to intern with us now or in the future. It's flexible in the sense that I have a 3-month, 6-month, or year program. You can pick. It depends on your schedule. So I might not just have summer, but if you, let's say you apply and we talk, you can still say, hey, I just want this period of time. Because a lot of people I know like travel, do their study abroad, so they're like, hey, like I just want to finish at this time. But also a lot of students want to work towards the runway. So no matter when they start, they all want to make sure they're part of the runway or part of New York Fashion Week. So again, it's flexible. So right now my internship for next year is kind of done. I usually look for interns right after the runway is over in June. So I know it doesn't fit exactly with the schedule of Kent State, but if you follow us and send us a DM, I do have like a kind of like an ongoing sign up list that you can sign up for, and anytime we're looking for interns or anyone else that we know is looking for interns, whether it's here in Cleveland or in New York, we'll send an email out, and then you'll get notified of the internship availability.
Hi, I'm Belinda. I was wondering, from a woman of color entrepreneur position, how difficult was it for you to start your business, and how did you get to be where you are?
Okay, you want the honest answer? You want the nice answer? It was hard. I'm not gonna lie. It's a lot harder for us, especially in cities that, Cleveland is like a medium city with big city energy. People in Cleveland love Cleveland, and they love to be Clevelanders. So like when I first started networking, people would be like, where are you from? East side, west side, what school did you go to? And I'd be like, well, I'm Canadian, I'm not from here. I was like an outsider. And I was a woman of color that wears a hijab, right? So there's a lot going on against me. But I think you just have to realize that there's a lot of people for you and there's a lot of people that are not for you. And it's not a you issue. And the faster you realize that and network, the more you'll grow. Because truly a lot of opportunities came my ways because I networked with amazing women and then they brought me opportunities. One of them is sitting here, Ariane. She's our chair for our foundation. Do you want to wave so everyone can see you? This is Ariane May. She's absolutely amazing. We met at the most, I won't say randomest opportunity, but the luckiest. So there was someone who was coming to my events. She reached out to me. She's like, hey, there's this sports thing happening. It's fashion and mental health. I was like, perfect. I'm fashion, I'm mental health. I don't really know much about sports, but let me see. She introduced me to Ariane. Turns out it was a runway for a designer for the NBA All-Stars that was coming from LA. We ended up producing the show. I ended up going to LA to see her like Beverly Hills, like workshop mansion studio. How I didn't even imagine, like I literally got on that video call and I was like Googling people and I'm like, oh, these are like big sports people. And then my friend who was really into sports, she's like, what do you mean you don't know who that is? And I was like, okay, girl, like you can give me the information, but like that's how I met Ariane. And then Ariane was the one that suggested, have you thought about looking into nonprofits? Because what you're doing, I was frustrated with the lack of support I was getting and I needed to go into the nonprofit world. And then she became my board chair and she's amazing. But you know, that would have never happened if I hadn't gotten out there and put myself out there and networked, because the more people see you and hear you, the more they're gonna be like, okay, we get her, right? If I kept, in the beginning, I was hiding, I'm not gonna lie. Like I would not show up on my fashion talk, even though I'm an influencer on my page, I did not show my face on my Fashion Talks Instagram. I sent a lot of my more American looking team members to the meetings because I was scared to show up. Because on a phone call, you can't tell who I am, right? If I send you an email, you don't know who I am. Now I have my picture in my email. Now I show up and I really put myself out there. And do I meet people who are not fans? Yes, but that's not my problem. It's not my loss, right? And especially as a woman of color, we come off a lot more intimidating when we know what we want. And I think you just have to accept that. And in school, everyone's nice to you, but when you get out there, people don't have to be nice to you, and that's okay. So I would say network and just show up.
I'll be back there and then
Okay, hi. I was wondering, I'm from Richmond, Virginia, which is a way smaller city than even Cleveland. And I was wondering, because I would definitely, like, moving back home, would like to build a foundation for a fashion community in that city. And I was just wondering what you thought was the best way to go about building that foundation in a city that's maybe even, like, smaller than Cleveland is.
I think the best way to start is just meeting people and figuring out if there's a community or if there's interest, because that's kind of what took me to Fashion Talks. I just kept meeting all these people that were really talented. I saw the potential. I was like, oh, like you're a designer and you are struggling with finding diverse models, but I know so many models, like let me introduce you. Like I think getting out there, networking, or even doing like small get-togethers, it doesn't have to be a serious thing. You could just be like, hey, we're gonna do like a little coffee and chat for people interested in fashion, see who shows up, right? Like do a virtual version and start posting about it. And I think if you have enough interest, that's all it takes. It really just takes a few people. And I think it's important to make sure that you think about everybody, because there has been instances where I have been doing events and I'm, we're really heavily focused on DEI, and I thought, okay, we're going in the right direction. So for example, I made a friend, and when I was doing my first ever event, I asked her, I'm like, I would love if you come to my event, but she was very hesitant, and I didn't understand why, because I was like, it's just a vision board event, it's gonna be fun, like it's nothing serious. And I got home that night and she messaged me and she said, do you think with the level of my English, I could come to your event? I had never even thought about that because my English is fine. Like I never even noticed that as a barrier. And I told her, absolutely, because I want everyone to attend and there should be no issue. Like, if anything, she speaks a whole other language, you know? She showed up and she had an amazing time. And I think it's like putting yourself out there and letting people know like what your energy is and what your vibe is. Because until you tell them, they won't really know, you know? So I think, again, networking, trying to do stuff, connect with people, and then slowly just start. Because the more you think about it, the more harder it's gonna get.
Do you have any advice when it comes to staying motivated and meeting deadlines?
Let's see. I struggle with that one too, especially when you come from working like a 9 to 5 to all of a sudden being in charge of your schedule. I think you need to find out what works best for you, because I really tried in the beginning to be like, you know, the people that wake up at 6 a.m. and they go for a run and they're like ready and done. I just was not that person. And if you've worked with me or my interns, you guys know I message them at like 2 a.m., at 3 a.m. because I work great at night, which works well for my students because they're also up at night. But I don't work so well in the morning. And it took me a long time to realize that's okay. So for me, I have to use kind of like my power hours. I know if I sit at 8 p.m., I'm gonna get like 3 hours of work done in half an hour. But if I try that at 10 a.m., it's gonna take me all morning. So realizing, okay, this works better for my body. Once I start like not burning out, but feeling like, okay, like I'm not motivated to change it up, or like I really enjoy watching dramas and going out to eat and, you know, taking a break. It doesn't hurt to take a break. That's definitely one thing, because I work on my business 24/7. If you ask anyone around me, I'm always working. But I also know when to take my breaks. There's always a certain time in the month where I'm like, okay, no one talk to me. I don't want to see humans. Don't breathe near me. Like, I just want to be alone in the dark and watch my TV shows for a week, you know? And then I'll be back. So you just kind of have to figure out your schedule. If you are a morning person, amazing. You know, if you're not, you're shaking your head like no. Then just figure out what works for you and what really keeps you motivated, because that's really important. And with deadlines, honestly, I have lists, I have timers, I have a bunch of stuff. I'm still trying to figure that out, but so far I've been good.
One from the top? Any from the top? No one?
Oh, I think there's one there.
Oh, sorry, I didn't see that. I was so focused. Upstairs. Let me see if I can reach you. Sorry.
Hi. So I am also a woman of color who is an aspiring entrepreneur, but I have a very hard time with like putting myself out there and like posting on social media, because I find social media very exhausting. And I don't know, I just have a really hard time like staying consistent. So I wanted to know, like, what is your best piece of advice on how to put yourself out there, and how did you get over like that kind of mental block?
Okay, so I'm gonna say the consistency thing for social media, what I tell a lot of people now is you can schedule posts. So you don't need to be on it all the time. Just batch create or schedule your posts and then close the app if you don't want to be on it all the time. But for showing up, honestly, it takes practice. You have to maybe start posting slowly in a way that you're comfortable with, whether it's online or showing up in spaces. It takes a while to get used to, but at the end of the day, what I always say is there's someone out there that's doing it, that's doing what you want, and they're probably not even half as good as you. So why aren't you doing it, right? Like, we all know, because we all get into the comparison sometimes. You know you've been on social media and you're like, girl, I could be doing better, right? But why aren't you, right? So you just have to kind of put yourself out there, because I know a lot of people are like, oh, what are people going to say and what are they going to think? I don't really think like that anymore, because at the end of the day, I'm going to sleep with my decisions and my business. No one on the internet is going to be like, well, you do this, and I'm like, okay, well, why do I care? Are you going to pay for my business? No, right? So I think it's slowly putting yourself out there, so even though I fully was an influencer and was posting myself all over my page with Fashion Talks, like I said, I couldn't. But what I started doing is I started posting on my page and I would repost on Fashion Talks. it was like a little bit more comfortable for me. Then I started showing up in stories. Then I started actually doing videos and putting it on the feed. And I realized that was the content that did the best because people want that human connection, or they want to see you and they want to hear your voice. If I were you, I would just, I know it's scary, but I would just continuously put yourself in that position, because that's how you're going to feel more comfortable. That's how you're going to learn. Because a lot of people are like, well, if I do this, then this is going to happen, and this is going to happen, and this is going to happen. But the thing is, what if none of that happens? And I guarantee you something else worse is going to happen, and you're still going to get over it. Like every time I plan the runway in my head, I'm like, okay, we're going to have 2 major issues this year. I know what they are, but we're going to get over them. And every year they're always a lot more crazier and they're a lot more harder. But every year I have a new story to tell, so really just try to really push yourself and put yourself out there. Just don't think about it. Just do it.
Hi. So I kind of resonated with you talking about how you were into behavior psychology and then moved into fashion, and that's kind of what I want to do, but in the opposite direction. Like, I'm a fashion design student, but I really like textile sciences and kind of want to move with my fashion design background into that industry after undergrad. So what is your advice on like moving into a space or an industry that you didn't start out with or do not know a whole lot about?
So for psychology, a lot of people think that, oh, it's so different. But in all honesty, it helped me a lot when I got into fashion, because fashion is a lot of psychology, of people, of design, of, how we think and what we do. And if you're going from, are you a design major? So from design to textile, I feel like that's still correlated, where if you did that, you might have an upper hand because you have a lot of design knowledge. That's what I felt like. A lot of the best people come from outside the industry, right? So you shouldn't be scared. If you really want to do it and are passionate about it, if you can do a little bit of both until you really are decided, do that. If not, then go for it. Like, I did psych and I did fashion on the side, and I thought I would do both until I moved here. And then I was like, oh, I have to pick one, So I would kind of weigh your options and future opportunities, but I do want to say I feel like they're correlated enough where you'll do fine, but just don't be scared to do it. Or maybe get an internship or try to volunteer in like the textile industry and see if you really like it. Because a lot of my interns, for example, will apply to be marketing and social media interns with me. 2 months in, I'm like, you guys are going to hate it. I know you're going to hate it, because 50 people applied this year, and out of that 50 plus actually was a majority were marketing and social media. And I'm like, I guarantee you half of you don't even like this because you don't think it is what it is. And then they get into it, and then it turns out they love admin or outreach or backstage production, So try volunteering in different events or talking to industry professionals, especially since you're a student. Email someone from the textile industry and be like, can I interview you? I'm doing a blog post. They're going to say no. No, they're not.
Any questions?
I think there's one right in front of her. Right there.
Hi. Just in terms of just how you were also talking about psychology and whatnot, and I think sometimes dealing with the oftentimes really toxic parts that is the fashion industry, how do you negotiate that? And how do you, obviously you create so much positive change by doing that, but how are you still able to be so immersed in the fashion industry with all these things that make up like capitalism and just all this stuff that's kind of hard to be around?
Yeah, totally. I'm not gonna lie, there are days where I sit there and I just rant and I'm like, this is so annoying and why is this, you know what I mean? It does get to you. But I think if you know how to take a break or separate yourself from that and know that's not, end of the day, it's not that the end of your goals, right? Like, there are people trying to make change and there are ways around it. I think that's important, and taking a break. Like, I will travel. That's my thing. I love to travel. So sometimes it's just like going through those emotions and hating everything about it and then coming back the next day and being like, okay, we're good, we're gonna make some positive change. But yes, there's still unfortunately a lot in the industry when it comes to every aspect that we struggle in. And even now when I go to New York Fashion Week, when I get invited to shows, this shouldn't be the case, but I'm still one of the only people in the room that looks like me. And I get there and I'm like, wait, why? Like, why is this still a thing? And that might be because a lot of influencers who look like me are afraid to put themselves out there because people like us are not usually seen, but also it's up to the brands, right? Like, I've seen the diversity grow, but there's still so much more than, you know, I've been on panels in Cleveland where they're like, this is all about women and diversity, and it's literally 5 American women, 2 European women, and me. And they're like, look at us, we're so different. And I'm like, no, we're not. This is not diversity, girls. But what I'm saying is, I think people are realizing in today's day and age with social media, and as things get harder, there's going to be ways around them. So you kind of just have to accept it, rant, let it out, and then go back to being motivated about it. Also, thank you for moving up, guys. This like helps when the speaker is talking. Yeah.
So do you suggest like we start in our state, or would you say like jump straight in and like go abroad? Like which one would you say would benefit?
What do you want to do, I guess?
Well, I'm not really sure. I'm just like
Okay.
kind of intrigued by this now. Kinda.
Okay.
And I was
Well-
curious, like let's say like I wanted to like dip my toe in. Would you suggest like I would just like go straight for the gusto, or like something that should just like kind of
Okay, honestly speaking, once you're done school, life happens and you get really busy, and if you get a job, you're stuck. Not in a bad way, but you have a 9 to 5. If you're gonna travel, do it now, because you will never have this opportunity again. You can do your state as well on the side when you're back in town, or like when you come back, depending on where you wanna work, but you traveling and meeting those people and having those experiences is something that is gonna be a lot harder as you get older. So the more you can travel while you're in school, I would highly recommend it, because that might inspire you to do something different. Whereas you're already here and you're gonna stay here. So why not experience somewhere else? That's because I think there's so much more opportunity, and don't be scared. I know some people are like, well, I'm gonna do my study abroad when all my friends do it. So I had interns who were like, I'm really scared, but I'm gonna do it. And then one of my girls went and she did it without any of her friends, and she made amazing new friends and new experiences. So I wouldn't be scared to put yourself out there, because no one knows you. You could be whoever you want.
My question is, like, do you have to choose just one industry to experiment or just put your expertise in? Or can you like just choose a bunch of ones that interest you?
I would say try them all out, because what if the one you choose and put all your expertise in, you don't like it, right? So it's always easier to, especially as students, volunteer and intern and try different things out. And if you really like two, and if you have the capacity to do more than one, do it, because I also have a bookkeeping and accounting business, which is nothing to do with fashion, right? And I am also in fashion. And even in fashion, I do a lot of different things. It's not just doing runway shows, right? I do speaking, and I do other services and mentorship, and there's so much more. So as long as you really figure out like what you like, and I know it sounds like cringy, like do what you're passionate about, but like if you don't like it, you're gonna suffer. So you might as well like it.
Do you have any advice on how to find networking opportunities, like events, or like deciding who to reach out to?
Yeah, so I would say Instagram and LinkedIn are probably your strongest two, maybe TikTok now, but it also depends on what kind of people you want to meet. If you're looking to find like the PR head and the CEO and all of those people, go to LinkedIn, obviously. If you want to find more like maybe people doing amazing things that are younger, Instagram and TikTok. But I would just send them a DM or follow them. I would even Google like, I don't know how successful this would be in Cleveland still, but like fashion events or networking events, or if you are going to another city like New York or Florence or wherever it may be, just look up like on Eventbrite or even TikTok, like just events that are happening in the city. And maybe it's not to do with fashion. Maybe you're going to check out the thrift scene or check out the different stores and connect with the people working there. Or you do find a networking event. But a lot of organizations also have like young professional or student groups. So like, for example, the Cleveland Museum of Art has like a young professional group that does stuff, right? So you can look into organizations, spots, people, and see what they're doing, and then try to network with them or connect with them. I mean, you're more than welcome. Obviously, when Fashion Talks, when we do our events in the foundation, like, you know, those are things you can come to. But I know you have a lot of on-campus clubs as well, which I'm sure would be helpful to network. But it's always good to get out and network in other spots. And there's a lot of virtual events that happen in fashion. So you don't have to actually travel somewhere if you can't. I know that Vogue does a lot, and there's a lot of other organizations that do virtual networking or like panels and things like that. So I would just do a bit more research online, especially on social media. I think I have met so many people through that I don't know how else I would have met them if they hadn't reached out, or I hadn't like come across, someone might have sent them to me and I would have been like, okay, cool, let me like reach out to them, and then we got coffee and connected and it worked out.
Maybe one last question, if there are any. No? Going once, going twice. Okay, so we'll thank Aimon for coming.
Thank you guys for coming.
Yeah, sharing your experiences. So for those of you who are attending the next session,